Hey guys, welcome to my February 9th DVD update, where I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Now, the first one I got from Disney is the new Monsters Incorporated Ultimate Collector's Edition Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, DVD, and digital copy version of Monsters Incorporated. And this is the main new thing about this one is it's in 3D. It also has the new Partysaurus Rex short on it, which is also in 3D. Very cool short with the Tyrannosaurus Rex character from the Toy Story films. Ends up, the one kid ends up taking him into the bathtub, and it's kind of like the toys that are in the bathtub. It was a real fun short. And, if you haven't seen Monsters Incorporated, though, it's about, the land of monsters where they collect the screams from children, and that's how they power the city. And, it's voiced by John Goodman, who plays the main, king, the monster, the top dog monster with, scaring the kids. He's on the top of the leaderboard with scaring kids. Billy Crystal's character is his friend, who kind of just sort of works with him and kind of collects the screams while he's doing it and things like that. And, there's also Steve Buscemi's character plays a monster who is kind of, right neck and neck with John Goodman's character of being the top, monster. And one night he's, trying to, get extra screams, and, he's basically cheating, and John Goodman's character is going to put back some papers, and basically a kid ends up getting free. And these monsters in this world, although they scare kids, are actually scared of children. So they think they have germs, and if anyone touches them, they get decontaminated, and basically the kid gets free. And it's the whole thing with John Goodman's character and Billy Crystal's character with the kid and trying to hide it, and they're also worried that if they get caught, they're going to get banished, things like that. It's a really good movie. I mean, when it comes to, the Pixar movies, this is one of my favorite ones next to WALL-E. Now, to talk about the 3D on this, I thought the 3D was very good. The movie wasn't released in 3D when it first came out in 2001. This was like a post-conversion 3D. But I think these kind of movies always work so well in 3D because you can, since they're animated, you can go back in there, pull the depth out, and it really does have great depth to the movie. It really does, because there's two different types of 3D movies. There's kind of ones where it's like depth, and it kind of feels like the image is just a little bit out of the screen. And then there's ones that are kind of more like gimmick kind of 3D, where it's like things popping out the whole time. And there's also ones where they kind of had elements of dust and things like that, which I think is pretty cool, like Hugo did that. But for this one, it really added a lot of depth, and I thought it was, it really worked for this movie. But I would definitely check this one out if you have a 3D TV. There's also a new edition of this out, on the regular edition that's not in 3D. But if you have 3D, definitely get this. And the Tyrannosaurus Rex is a great feature on this. The next one I got from Universal, this is one I was really looking forward to seeing. It's The Awakening. And it's a movie in the 1920s about a woman who basically goes and tries to disprove, for people who can say they can talk to spirits and things like that, at seances and things like that. She ends up getting call, or I think it was called a letter, because it was the 20s. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she gets a call about going to a boys' school where the children have been starting to see this ghost, and one of the kids that said that he was seeing this ghost, this young boy, ends up dead. So she ends up going there to try and investigate what's going on there. And, they look back on past pictures of the school, and this kid is always there on the side, this ghost. And she thinks it's done with trick photography with, if one kid, back then, if you, were taking a picture, if you could run from one side to the other, you could kind of make it look like a ghostly image, things like that, something like that. But she goes to this school to try and investigate what's going on. And this is I really like this. It's a kind of like The Woman in Black, kind of a slow burn, real 70s feeling, suspense, horror movie like that, and I like those kind of movies, not everyone loves these kind of things, but I like these kind of things with her, and, with the ghost, and I thought it was pretty creepy, too, with her investigating it, and, trying to figure out what was going on. It had a really good setting, too. The boys' school that they filmed that was, this English countryside school, really, had a great backdrop to it, had a great, everything about that really worked. It wasn't like a perfect movie all all around, but it had a lot of creepy elements, and I thought it was pretty cool too how they were showing how they would investigate ghosts and things like that back in the 20s, and kind of the camera equipments, and kind of when you look at the way they do it now and things like Ghost Hunters, and looking at how they did it then with these old kind of cameras, and putting dust on the floor, and they do some of these things now. And I thought that was an interesting aspect to it. The next one I got is from Warner Brothers. It's a digibook edition of A Star Is Born, which I had never seen before. And it's a Barbra Streisand, Kristofferson movie. Really have been a fan of Kris Kristofferson for a long time. Really loved him in The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, from the Sea. And, of course, Big Top Pee-wee. And this is one I had never seen before. And it's basically about Kris Kristofferson, and this takes place in the 70s. And I think there was 2 versions of this before, a Judy Garland one. But it's about, Kris Kristofferson is a kind of an old musician who was very famous a while back and has major alcohol problems and is sort of trying to, on his comeback tour, kind of trying to get himself back together and go, get kind of big again. And he's managed by Gary Busey. And Gary, a young Gary Busey. Gary Busey was very good in this. And it's basically him. And one night after a show, Gary Busey's like, you gotta go to bed, you gotta get up. And Gary Busey's character, too, is kind of, he's not helping him. He's giving him cocaine, and he's really not helping someone who's got really bad alcohol and drug problems. But one night he ends up going out to this club and ends up seeing Barbra Streisand singing with it's just a kind of a dive bar. And he sees her singing, and he's in there drunk and talking too much, and she's getting kind of mad at him. But from there, they end up kind of meeting, and it ends up being that, she ends up kind of going out with him on tour, and he starts to really like her, and it's kind of that kind of a thing, and it involves too him, because Barbra Streisand's character has all this talent. It's him kind of helping her and kind of showing how she's succeeding so much, and he doesn't really feel that he can do it. And I don't know, I really enjoyed this one. It is a very sad movie. And, it has like these like classic songs like I believe in the souls of love and in the commentary. Well, I can't say how it goes, but I just kind of get stuck in your head that I believe, and that song you kind of get stuck in your head. It has a commentary in here with Barbra Streisand, and I thought this was a pretty cool movie though. I like this one a lot. The next one is a Kevin James film it's from Sony, and it's Kevin James and Here Comes the Boom. Now this one, I really wanted to see this because I saw that Henry Winkler was in this. I've been a fan of Henry Winkler for years. Of course, The Fonz, Happy Days, and all the Adam Sandler movies. Because he's been a couple I think, The Click, and might have been another Adam Sandler movie, but one Adam Sandler movie, and a number of different stuff, Director of Cop and a Half, and, he plays a big role in this, but it's Kevin James. He works at this school, and the school is having all kinds of money problems, and they're going to be cutting the music program, which means that Henry Winkler is going to be losing his job. Henry Winkler, his character, has just found out that his wife, is pregnant, so it's kind of a problem, because Kevin James is like, well, what is he going to do? His wife, his wife is pregnant. He can't lose his job and get him fired. So Kevin James, steps up and says, I'll get the money. And he ends up coming up with the idea because of his one friend who was I think it's MMA fighter, and I think that's what you call it. Well, he ends up, his friend, and basically Kevin James ends up fighting in these matches to try and, raise the money to, to keep Henry Winkler's job. I think he has to raise like $50,000 or something like that in order to keep his job. And, it's basically the movie is him, Kevin James, going to these fights, kind of working his way up. And, I thought it was pretty funny. There was like a really good scene in this with applesauce. And, but the main thing I really liked was I really liked Henry Winkler in this. And Henry Winkler really had a great part in this and, played a great character. And it was a sweet movie. I really liked this one a lot. The next one is Celeste and Jesse Forever, and it's from Sony as well. And it's, Andy Samberg, from SNL, who's recently left, but I think he's still doing the digital shorts still, like every so often. But, Elijah Wood's in this as well, and Rashada Jones. And she actually wrote this one, and it's kind of, Amy Sandberg and Rashida Jones they were married, and then they're getting separated, but they're still very good friends, and Andy Sandberg still lives at the house, in the guest house, and they see each other every day, they go out to dinner every day, and, they're basically just best friends, and all their friends don't understand why they're getting separated. They don't, they think, why, if you don't like each other enough to stay together, why are you seeing each other every day? And that's the basic the concept of this. And, Andy Samberg is like doing everything he can to kind of hope that he gets back with her, because he really does want to get back with her, and she really does kind of want to get back with him, but they're kind of like afraid of it, you know what I mean? And Andy Samberg, makes the move because he thinks things, because, they end up sleeping together again, that he kind of thinks that things are going to work out again, and she kind of brushes him off. So Andy Samberg takes that as, okay, there's no chance, I'm just going to leave and just forget it. There's no point in pursuing this anymore. So he ends up moving out and ends up finding someone else. And it's basically about, her kind of having the regrets, and, and I don't want to say anything more about it, but that happens in the first, 30 minutes of the movie. It's basically just a relationship movie about these two that really do like each other, but are kind of going other directions and things like that. And, I thought it was really good. Elijah Wood plays her boss, and I thought he did a really good job. Emma Watson, plays... Emma Roberts. Emma Roberts plays a, kind of a musician character. It's kind of like... the one character doesn't really like her, and she works, with Elijah Wood, doing music promotions and things like that, or trending promotion, things like that. I don't know, I really like this one. I thought it was a good, different, kind of more realistic take on relationships, and not the cookie-cutter kind of thing you would expect on it. The next one I got from Anchor Bay, and this is the documentary. I was really interested in seeing this, and it's called Bully. Now, the thing about this is, and they even say that this is really something that, people who are in school, like middle schoolers and high schoolers, really should see this. And I do agree on it. It's a documentary basically all following bullies. Kids who are bullied, and it talks mainly, in the beginning about a kid who, from bullying, committed suicide. There's just 2 kids that committed suicide. It's very sad, very well done. And it's about one girl, follows around one kid who gets, picked on the bus and picked on in school. And also about the administration, about how, if you tell them something, they're like, shake hands, and they're not really helping. Of course, there's some principals and teachers and stuff that really do try and put a stop to it. But it kind of shows that there's a lot of them, just sort of brushing it off. Just say you're sorry, shake hands, and it's that kind of a thing. One girl who is gay, and the whole town kind of has shunned her, and if she sits down at school, people move away, and it's very sad. It's like one of those kind of movies, it is kind of almost surprising that, they didn't have to blur out all the kids, because when you think about it, some of these kids were really awful. You know what I mean? And, I had bullying like that in middle school, and, it really, you just sort of have to, it's just a shame that this kind of stuff goes on. And I think this really is a good documentary for people kids to watch, and to see that, there are precautions, things can happen by doing this to people. And, people have feelings, and it's a deep documentary. It's not this isn't something I'm going to go out and say everybody has to go and watch, because it is very sad. You have to brace yourself for what it is, and know that you're not watching a positive documentary. This is, a serious thing about serious things that are going on. And it also kind of shows you homeschooling seems sort of like a better option, and it also makes it seem a little bit like going to school in a small town. It brings on more bullying. I was surprised that they didn't get many schools. They didn't get any big city schools or anything like that. I guess they wouldn't agree to do it. But I thought for what it was a very well done documentary on that subject. The next one from Echo Bridge, and this is a really fun Marlon Wayans film, Senseless. And Marlon Wayans is in college and, really needs money. And, he's basically helping his mother out, too, with rent. And, I think he's in very, very good school, but needs money and ends up seeing an ad for, medical testing, and it's Brad Dourif's character doing these weird tests, and he ends up, going to do these tests that give him ultra senses. So, like, any type of senses that, any human would have are magnified, I think, like 10%. So he ends up taking these drugs and has, like, can zoom in with his eyes, super vision, super smell, super feel, and all those kind of things. And it's kind of basically just that's what it is him, kind of using these things. And Matthew Lillard plays his roommate, and I don't know, it's a really fun movie. And David Spade plays a college student, and it kind of was funny because, like, David Spade was a little old to be playing a college student. He was like 30-something. I don't know, I like this one. It's just a fun, like, I think it was like 98 comedy, like from 1998. And the next one I got is Paranormal Activity 4. I just had to pick this one up. It's not the best of the Paranormal Activity films. This one follows around a girl and her boyfriend, and they're sort of seeing the things, and it uses Skype and different kind of things like that. But those are the kind of ones you just sort of have to get. I liked it a lot more than I liked the second one. I think my favorite Paranormal Activity for some reason is the third one. Really liked that one a lot, but yeah, the third one, the last one was my favorite one. This one was okay though. And the next one I got from the Kino Redemption line is Oasis of the Zombies, and it's Jess Franco film. It's about, gold being lost out in the desert. During World War II, all these soldiers were killed, and the soldiers, like, that all died there are kind of protecting this gold. And it was a kind of a cool setting because there really hasn't been many movies set in, like the desert with zombies. There was some weird stock footage in this movie of, like, on some other war movie. And the way they combined it was kind of weird because, like, they would combine it because you could tell because it was, like, really different quality looking footage. And then it would kind of cut to a car that kind of looked like it. And I don't know, it's interesting. The zombies in it, I've never seen zombies look like this. Like, and it adds to the thing. It was like almost like they put paper mache on people's faces, and like had these tiny little whole eyes that were like one of them was like this. One that were like as big as erasers, like little teeny like number 2 pencil erasers. It was like, I don't know. It was a weird thing about it. I enjoyed them though, but it's about these people going to try and get the gold. And, one guy goes to get it and tries to get the location of this from the guy and ends up killing him. So then the son hears that his father was killed, ends up going, to see his father, and his friends come along. They end up going to try, finding out about the gold and trying to find it. And then basically anybody that goes to this thing, these zombies are there protecting it. And, that's the main thing about this one. But it was a fun, seeing the zombies in the sand and things like that. And the oasis is like kind of all these like shrubs and stuff all on top of each other. Them coming out of it. Like the zombie stuff was some of the coolest stuff. Especially like they would put like worms on people's eyes and just sort of set a worm there. And it was weird. Like I said, the makeup and that kind of stuff was so weird in this. And the next one is from Kino Redemption line as well. And it's Zombie Lake. And this is a Gene Roland film. And I don't know if Gene Roland did many zombie movies. I don't know. I may be wrong. But I don't think he's done too many like these kind of movies. And I saw this one years back. And it's as well. And watched it again for the first time in like 12 years or something. And it's about, the opening of this was really cool. It's about a lake. And, something happened on this lake before with, kind of like war stuff as well. People died there. And the lake is haunted with, zombies. And, trying to remember what happens exactly. Basically, women are being killed in this lake. Now, to talk about the zombies in this one, they kind of use like clown makeup for the makeup of the zombies. So when they're in the water, underwater, they kind of did something different with it. Like, I don't know, it stayed on better. But when they got out of the water, it kept, like, every time their head would come up a little bit more of it would, like, fade off. So then at some points, it was just like a regular guy in there, and the makeup was just gone. So it was like, why were they using that kind of makeup? It was clown makeup, like the kind you wash up with water. But I don't know. But it's basically the women are getting killed there, and one person is investigating what's going on there. And that's basically the thing, is like just people getting killed in this lake. But it's a really fun one. I really love Gene Roland stuff. He has a certain kind of feel to all of his stuff. The only thing I think that was lacking, in my opinion, with this one is some of the music. because some of his movies have really good, like Fascination stuff, have really cool music. This one's music wasn't as cool, but it was a cool thing. Like, my favorite movie with zombies coming out of the water is Shockwaves, which is a really cool one. The next one I got from Sony as well is Robot and Frank. This one worked on so many levels and had something to it that worked so well I couldn't even believe it. And I cried like a fiend to this movie. And it's Robot and Frank, starring Frank Langella. And he's basically an old guy who's living on his own, and, he's starting to go through, starting to not remember things and getting kind of, dementia, just sort of starting to forget things. And, his son is very worried about him, so he ends up getting him, because his son lives hours away, so has to drive, I think, 5 or 6 hours once a week to see him, and it's starting to take a toll, because it's, he drives to see him on his day off, he doesn't have time to see his kids, so he ends up buying him, and this is in the future, this robot. This is like basically a helper robot, and this movie has that vibe of, Short Circuit, and, Bicentennial Man, and things like that, like those great kind of, like, really good robot movies. And he ends up, doesn't want this robot, and it's, he ends up starting to kind of become friends with him. And it's about, his character, the main character was once a cat burglar and would rob all kinds of houses and get all kinds of jewelry. And the movie's about him kind of, the robot really wants him to do exercise and get outside and do things. And, he doesn't really want to do exercise and all that kind of stuff and plant in the garden. So he, tells the robot, I want to, start staking out things and robbing things, because the library near where he lives, is closing down and kind of becoming like a digital, and they have these really old books locked up, and that's kind of the first target. And I don't want to say anything more about what happens, but it's basically, a story about him becoming friends with this robot, and just a real positive, really, like, well done movie. Liv Tyler plays his daughter, and she's all against these kind of robots and thinks that it's not a good thing. I don't know. I thought it was just such a well done movie, and like I said, it was so sad, some of it too. But I really loved it. This one I would recommend so much that everyone checks this out. The next one, I just finished watching this like a minute ago, and it's Small Apartments, and I really wanted to see this because it stars Matt Lucas, who's from, Little Britain, and, Come Fly With Me, in Little Britain, everyone knows him from, and I love Matt Lucas. Matt Lucas was really cool in this. He did an American accent. I thought he did a really good job, but his character lives in this kind of crappy L.A. apartment. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be L.A. apartment that's kind of in the neighborhood is falling apart, and the apartment's about to fall apart, and, pretty much just to like its last leg. He's in this place with all these soda bottles everywhere, and the whole entire movie, I mean, every scene in this movie, he's in his underpants, and he's wearing just at some points like jackets over him. It was he doesn't care. I rarely gave him respect for that. He did, he's in his underpants a lot in Come Fly With Me, but I was surprised that he, did it the whole movie. And, it's him in his underpants in this apartment, and there's a dead body on the floor, and you don't really know what's going on with this. And the movie involves him trying to get rid of this body, and it involves all the people in this apartment complex. Johnny Knoxville's one of the people, and he's like kind of this kind of down on his luck guy, and Rebel Wilson, Fat Amy from Pitch Perfect is in it as kind of the girl he's seeing. And who else was in this? There was Dolph Lundgren was in it as kind of like a guru, like a self-guru teaching you, about helping your brain grow and all these kind of things. And there were so many different people. Juno Temple was in this. DJ Qualls, who I haven't seen the movie in a long time, was in this. I really liked this, though, but it was about, this weird, quirky thing with him trying to get, rid of the body, and, him trying to make it look like suicide, and then he sets him on fire, and all this crazy stuff goes on in this. And Billy Crystal plays, like, the, guy, trying to examine what's going on. He's like the fire chief, and it's kind of like, why is the fire chief examining it? And I liked that. It was just weird. And Billy Crystal was great in this, and it wasn't, lately we saw in that new movie PG Billy Crystal. This is R-rated Billy Crystal, which you haven't seen in a long time since, like, Analyze That. Really love this. Like, it's a weird, quirky, strange, offbeat movie that was really worth checking out. I really think that it was just really funny. The next one from Sony is Kill For Me. This is almost kind of like well, not in any way the same, plot. I mean, same thing that's going on, but the same kind of idea as throw them out from the train. It's these two girls who have both kind of been abused by men in different ways. Like, the one has a very abusive ex-boyfriend that she's gotten rid of, but he keeps coming back around and keeps making moves on her, and he basically, he won't take the hint and leave. The other girl has a father who is very abusive and hits her, and, she has all kinds of bruises from him. And the one girl who has an abusive boyfriend, the one friend is, been missing in the house for a long time, so they need to get more money coming in. So the one girl ends up renting out the house, the girl who has an abusive father, and they kind of end up becoming friends. And the one day, the girl's getting beaten up by the abusive boyfriend in the basement, and the one girl ends up hitting him over the head and killing him. And it becomes, these girls also kind of have a, relationship going on, kind of, too, so it kind of adds to it. But the girl who was with the boyfriend, it's kind of like she's just sort of with her just because. It's an interesting thing going on. And basically, though, with her killing the one, she's like, well, I killed your problem. You got to get rid of my father. And that's like the main concept of this is, and does she do it and what happens? I enjoyed this, and it has some interesting kind of things happening to it that you really wouldn't expect. And, it's an interesting thing following these two who have both been abused by men in different ways, and they're kind of dealing with it together. But yet the one girl who wants her to kill them is, nuts, and it has a single white female kind of vibe to it as well. This one is definitely worth checking out. The next one, this one's a little bit hard to explain. It's called Chicken with Plums, and this is from Sony as well. This is about a guy whose violin was destroyed, his favorite violin, and he's basically going around trying to get a new one, and nothing's right, nothing has the right sound. He ends up thinking that he ended up finding a new one. It was a Stradivarius, goes to get it with his son. That isn't right, and he ends up basically deciding that he wants to die. And he's kind of thinking about how he's going to do it, and his plan is to just sort of lock himself in his room and just die. And he's having in the room, up until his death, because you see in the beginning that he's died, and this kind of shows the days leading up to his death, and kind of the visions he's seeing, and seeing, things of his, his son's future, seeing the angel of death, and seeing all kinds of weird visions, and it's kind of cool effects the way they did it, all kinds of weird stuff. That's basically the thing, though, is the weird visuals and weird things that he's seeing leading up to his death. The next one I got from Arc Entertainment is Smiley, and this one stars Shane Dawson from YouTube. I believe it's directed by the guy who's directed a bunch of the Shane Dawson videos, and he's a big YouTuber as well, I'm pretty sure. And this is about this killer, in this smiley mask, where if you go on a chat roulette type of site, when you're talking to some random person, you write, I did it all for the laws 3 different times, this character will go and kill the person on the chat roulette type site. And it's like the one girl kind of, is at the party and kind of hears about this and sees it happen. Then she's with her friend, and they go home and try it. And the one person they're talking to in the chat roulette ends up getting killed. The one thing about this was kind of peculiar was the girl in it. The main girl, every second, and I've never seen a movie where this was going on, was crying. She was like, Smiley's gonna get me. Crying profusely. And then, every time Smiley, pops up on screen, or you see a picture, she's like, Smiley! I have never seen it. I was like, whoa. I was like, she'd look at this. Whoa, calm down. And, she kept crying about Smiley. And, she ends up becoming friends with Shane Dawson's character. And she ends up trying to kind of investigate what's going on. Keith David plays a cop in the movie. And the one guy who plays the teacher who's in a bunch of different movies. Don't know his name, though. But I kind of like this one. I mean, it's not a perfect movie. I could have done without I don't know what was the reasoning behind having that girl cry so much. Like I said, I've not seen something where it was a character crying so many times. And every moment, she's talking to the police, you gotta believe me. Smiley's out to kill me. And it's like that the whole time. But, you know, I liked it. It was a different kind of slasher movie. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie, but it was interesting. It was a different type of thing. I thought Shane Dawson, actually, you know, I don't know too much about his videos. I've seen a couple different ones, but I thought he did a good job in it, though. The next one, I had to talk about this, and it's, you know, a film that I'm in, you know, Ghostquake, and I wanted to let you guys know that if anyone out in the UK or who has Region 2, you know, Haunted High is out under the international title Ghostquake. Now, I will say, though, anyone who buys this, just know that this is the international cut version of the movie. So a lot of the gore and a lot of the violent stuff is kind of taken out. So, like, you know, there's certain things where there's some blood and stuff, and that's not in this one. The only version that has that is Haunted High. When the Haunted High edition comes out, I'll let you all know. But, you know, I want to let you guys know, though, this is the movie with me and Danny Trejo. And it came out from Signature Entertainment. But I want to let you guys know it was out, because I just definitely wanted to talk about that. And the next ones from Kino as well are the classic educational shorts. I love these kind of, these are all the kind of shorts that they would play during, you know, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I think there was one or two from the 80s, you know, like the school kind of films about, you know, minding your manners, about driver's ed, about, you know, sex ed, all those kind of crazy ones. There was some, like, I remember, I think, like, I don't know, it felt like the one they might have actually played before in Driver's Ed for some reason. The one that's really good on this one was The Day I Died. And it was about a kid, you know, who ended up, you know, just getting his license. And he ends up, you know, going out drinking. You know, he just sort of has a drink at the beach with these kids. And he's drunk. So he ends up driving back drunk and ends up dying. So it's him dead, like, kind of, like, crying about his life. And, you know, it's real, like, you know, it kind of has music like Hills Have Eyes in the 70s. Kind of, like, real, like, woof. It would have scared kids bad back then, I'm sure. I mean, even now, it would, like, make you, like, oh, be careful when you're driving. But these are really fun stuff. Like, my favorite all-time ever education short was Mr. Bungle. The one that, you know, Pee-wee always played about, you know, Mr. Bungle never eats dessert before, you know, he ends up, you know, eating his, you know, lunch and that. But these are fun, you know. I love these kind of crazy things. And the last one I got from Inception Media is Ghost Trap. Now, I want to say that you know, this was such a crazy, cheesy movie that it felt like something like a lost 1992 film that was just discovered. And it kind of reminded me of the vibe of Mr. Ice Cream Man. Like, you know, I don't know. And I've never seen this before in my life. It had a cut within a cut. You know, there was something happened or something. And in the movie, you know, there's one long shot of them all three kids walking. Then it just cuts, like, a split second. And behind them is a car with people unloading lawnmowers and stuff. I'm like, what? And I'm like, well, it wasn't a shot of the sky or some feat you could have done? But it's these kids that, you know, one kid ends up, you know, in the beginning of the movie, they're screwing around with a rocket. And the rocket flies up and ends up going up in the sky, causing some kid to get, you know, hurt on his bike. And this old woman to fall down. It's really, the whole sequence was so ridiculous when she was falling down, and basically the woman's like, where are you hoodlums, and all this stuff, and the kids, and the one kid, the girl, for some reason only she had to deal with this, has to go and, you know, see the woman every single day before school and after school and get her food and things like that. But the house she's in, the woman is a witch, and the woman, you know, the acting of the witch was like, I promise you to take me to the thing with the witch. And, like, the way she's talking about the witch stuff, and she's, like, putting this, I don't know what's going on, but she, like, says something and ends up letting ghosts out in the house. And the house is haunted, and the girl has to deal with these ghosts. And the one teacher, you know, and the teacher was the coolest character in this whole movie. They end up kind of like a Little Monsters thing with, you know, getting these ghosts. And it's such a, like I said, I like this because it was like a total lost movie. And I love these kind of, like, movies, these kind of cheesy things. Like, these, like, I live for these kind of things. It was like these crazy, cheesy, over-the-top things. Like, it's like my favorite type of stuff. But, you know, definitely check this one out. You know, it's just so strange. But anyway, though, thanks a lot for watching, for subscribing, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.